and want to see him elected, but the degree of their support in terms of blatant dishonesty is shocking to many people. What I've documented in this particular article at AIM.org is the fact that the Associated Press, which is a wire service that reaches millions of people, has published a blatantly dishonest story about Barack Obama's communist mentor, a man named Frank Marshall Davis. We actually broke this story many months ago, and it's belatedly been the case that AP is now running a story about this important influence on Barack Obama's life. But the problem is they did a lengthy story about Frank Marshall Davis, who was Obama's mentor during his high school years, and never mentioned that he was a communist. He was, in fact, a member of the Communist Party USA, a key member of a Soviet-sponsored international communist network in Hawaii. He was a mentor, a major influence, a role model, a father figure for Barack Obama. And yet AP does this long story about him, ignoring the fact that he's a communist, and quoting all these people, friends and associates of his, and he died back in 1987, saying, in effect, how much of a great guy he was, and how he was a positive influence on Barack Obama, and was committed, quote, to social justice. Well, this is just another example of the outrageous pro-Obama media bias that is going to mislead and confuse millions of people about who Barack Obama is and where he came from.
This communist was such a huge influence on Obama. How come we haven't heard about him more in Obama's book?
This is a big question that only Barack Obama can ask. AP, the wire service, didn't bother to even raise it. They do mention in the story that Barack Obama, in his 1995 book, Dreams from My Father, refers to this guy, but he only refers to him as Frank. It doesn't even give his readers his complete name. Frank Marshall Davis certainly doesn't mention he was a communist. Talks about him reading poems and giving him, Barack Obama, advice on various things like American values and college and race relations. But Barack Obama never mentions that Frank was Frank Marshall Davis. And when we confirmed this, we confirmed who this guy actually was many months ago. I actually commissioned a major report on this subject by Herbert Romerstein, a veteran anti-communist investigator, and we looked into Davis's background. He was an identified member of the Communist Party. He was a Stalinist. He supported the evil Soviet regime. This is a very bad person, and yet this is the guy who was picked by Barack Obama's white grandfather, Stanley Dunham, to be Barack Obama's mentor. Because, as we all know, Obama's father had abandoned the family. So Frank Marshall Davis filled that void. This is a key guy in his life who pumped Barack Obama's head full of anti-American thoughts and ideas. And this influence helps explain why later on Barack Obama would associate with Marxists and socialists in college, go to Reverend Jeremiah Wright's church, launch his political career in the home of communist terrorists Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn, and take, in general, a Marxist view on domestic, social, and global issues.
Well, it does explain a lot about Barry Obama.
Davis is the key to understanding Obama, and yet Obama covered up his true identity in his book, and the AP doesn't even try to get to the bottom of it. Instead, they run this blatantly dishonest piece by a Honolulu reporter for AP, a guy named Sudhin Thanawala, who completely ignores the fact, and we had provided him information about this, by the way. We provided him the Romerstein report. We provided him all the information we have, and yet this reporter ignores all of it, ignores all of the evidence, and completely ignores the fact in his story that Davis was an identified member of the Communist Party. This is how dishonest AP has become. And at the same time, by ignoring the evidence, they excuse Barack Obama's dishonesty as well.
The depth of the cover-up in the midstream media is beyond even my comprehension. How did Obama become the chosen one?
It's no secret we've got a liberal left bias in the major national media in this country. This is a bias that we at Accuracy in Media have documented going back for decades. They want to see Obama win. They naturally, almost like clockwork, want to see the Democratic candidates win, especially on a national basis, and especially Obama. I mean, you look at this guy, his campaign strategist is David Axelrod, who used to work for the Chicago Tribune as a, quote, political reporter. His main spokesperson is Linda Douglas, formerly of CBS News, ABC News, and the National Journal. This guy is surrounded by the media who love him. They are on his payroll, and those who are not on his payroll might as well be, or maybe they're doing it for free. I don't know what their motive is, but they want to see him elected to the point of denying the American people absolutely documented information that a Communist Party member, a key member of a Soviet-sponsored international communist network in Hawaii, was a decisive influence over Barack Obama.
Well, how big of a scandal is this Davis story to Barry Obama's campaign?
I think the Davis story is the biggest one of all. This is the biggest scandal of the campaign so far. And it's not just a scandal for Obama. It's a scandal for the press corps, which continue to try to cover it up. Because Davis explains why Obama would associate with communists and socialists later in life. It was Davis who had the influence over Obama during his formative high school years. And we had confirmed this months ago. We've been trying to get this story out for months. I've done work through Accuracy in Media. The Obama campaign has tried to ignore it until now we get the AP, the wire service, running this blatantly dishonest piece trying to picture Frank Marshall Davis as just some kind of a positive influence on Obama, somebody committed to social justice who was merely, quote, left-leaning and a, quote, journalist and a poet. Well, let me tell you how much of a journalist this guy was. He was a propagandist for the Communist Party who wrote for the Communist Party-controlled newspaper in Hawaii, the Honolulu Record. And in terms of being a poet, he wrote poems in honor of the Soviet Red Army and mocking Christian missionaries. That's the kind of, quote, poet this guy was. And so this guy is critical to understanding how Obama turned out later in life, why he would go to Wright's Church, why he would associate with terrorists and communists and socialists in Chicago. This is the key to understanding Barack Obama, and that's why this is a blockbuster of a story that AP now, with distribution to thousands and thousands of print and electronic outlets in the United States and internationally, is trying to obscure and to confuse people about who Frank Marshall Davis really was. I repeat, I provided this reporter direct documentary evidence in the form of the reports that we did at usasurvival.org, proving Davis was a communist, proving he had a history of involvement not only in the Communist Party but various Communist Front organizations over the period of many, many years before, during, and after World War II. I gave all of this information to this reporter, and he deliberately ignored it, and instead in his story only quotes those who are supporters of or friends of Davis or Obama.
Cliff Kincaid, thanks for being on the Savage Nation.
It was good to be with you. Thanks a million.